Step back into the golden age of old Hollywood, a world where the spotlight never dimmed and the stars seemed larger than life. Beneath the dazzling premieres, the red carpet glamour, and the carefully crafted studio images, there existed another reality, one far more complex, human, and at times, quietly rebellious. In this episode, we unlock a collection of rare photos that have long been hidden from the public eye. These are not the polished publicity shots meant to sell a dream, but candid moments frozen in time, whispered romances captured in the shadows, acts of defiance against powerful studios, and intimate glimpses of legends simply being themselves. Each image carries a story untold, a fragment of history waiting to be revealed. Once you've seen these photos and learned their secrets, you may never look at old Hollywood the same way again. So, are you ready to step behind the curtain? Old Hollywood, spanning roughly from the 1920s to the early 1960s, was more than just a period in cinema. It was a meticulously engineered dream. The major studios, from MGM to Warner Bros., held unprecedented power over every aspect of an actor's public life. Contracts were ironclad. Image was everything, and every public appearance was choreographed to perfection. Stars weren't just entertainers, they were carefully crafted symbols of glamour, elegance, and aspiration. But away from the flashbulbs and movie premieres, there was a different Hollywood, a private world known only to those on the inside. Studio heads had entire departments dedicated to controlling press coverage, suppressing scandal, and promoting only the narratives that would sell tickets. Paparazzi, as we know them today, barely existed, and when photographers did capture an unscripted moment, it often vanished into archives, never to be seen by the public. The rare photos we'll explore today come from those hidden corners of history. Some emerged from private collections, others from long-forgotten newspaper negatives, and a few from personal scrapbooks that surfaced decades later. They reveal friendships that crossed rival studio lines, fleeting romances that were kept secret to protect careers, and moments of vulnerability from figures usually seen as untouchable. This was an era before instant media exposure, no social media, no 24-hour news cycle, which meant that a single photograph had immense power. It could make a career, destroy a reputation, or tell a story no amount of scripted publicity could match. That's why so many of these images were quietly locked away. By piecing together the context behind each photo, the year it was taken, the atmosphere on the set or at the event, and the pressures facing the people in it, we'll reconstruct a side of Hollywood history that was never meant to be part of the public record. These are the untold stories of the silver screen's brightest stars, preserved in frames of truth that outlasted the illusions.
In the late 1940s, MGM was home to two of the era's most bankable stars, a leading man with a clean-cut image and a rising actress whose elegance made her the studio's pride. Publicly, their paths seemed parallel but separate. Privately, they were entangled in a romance that defied strict studio rules forbidding relationships without publicity approval. One rare black and white photo, taken at a private wrap party, captures them in a fleeting glance, her hand brushing his sleeve, his smile directed only at her. The moment is subtle, almost innocent, but for those who knew the politics of Hollywood at the time, it was a silent rebellion. Back then, studio contracts didn't just dictate which roles actors played. They could control who they dated, when they married, even where they were allowed to be seen in public. Any hint of a relationship outside the approved narrative risked costly publicity campaigns to correct the story. This photo survived because it was taken by a set decorator who happened to bring his camera to the celebration. He kept it tucked in a personal album for decades, fearing it might cause trouble if it ever surfaced. When it finally emerged, it revealed not scandal, but a human moment of connection that had been hidden for more than half a century. For fans who grew up believing these stars belonged to carefully crafted roles, this single frame is a reminder, behind the glamour, they were simply people, capable of breaking the rules for a chance at something real.
It was 1955, and one of the most anticipated productions of the decade was underway on the backlot of 20th Century Fox. The film's leading actress was known for her elegance and composure, the kind of star whose public persona was as polished as the diamonds she wore on screen. But behind the scenes, she had grown weary of the suffocating control the studio exerted over every detail of her image, from her hairstyle to the way she held a teacup during interviews. A rare color photograph from the set shows her in an unguarded moment, sitting cross-legged on the floor in a plain cotton shirt, sipping coffee from a paper cup. Around her, crew members lounged casually, some laughing, others mid-conversation. There's no trace of the glamorous facade audiences were used to seeing. This image was taken by a stills photographer who had been hired to capture official production shots. But in between staged images, he quietly snapped candid frames, knowing they might never pass studio approval. He kept them in a private collection until his passing, when they were discovered among thousands of negatives in his estate. At the time, such a casual depiction of a star could be seen as risky, a break from the perfection the studio demanded. Yet now, decades later, it stands as one of the most genuine portraits of her, revealing a woman at ease among colleagues, free from the heavy layers of expectation. For viewers, this photo doesn't diminish her legend, it deepens it. It shows that even within the rigid confines of Hollywood's golden machine, moments of quiet defiance existed, preserved only because someone cared enough to see beyond the performance.
In 1961, one of Hollywood's grandest award ceremonies unfolded under a canopy of flashbulbs and velvet gowns. The event was as much about image as it was about honoring achievement. Every smile rehearsed, every step calculated. For the studios, this was prime time to display their stars as flawless embodiments of glamour. Yet, a single rare photograph from that evening tells a different story. Captured just beyond the edge of the red carpet, it shows a celebrated actor crouched in the corner of the lobby, helping a nervous young extra repair a broken shoe strap. He's still in his tuxedo, golden statue in hand, his expression focused not on the cameras, but on the small task before him. The shot was taken by a freelance photographer who had been assigned to cover the arrivals. Spotting the interaction, he instinctively raised his camera, knowing he was witnessing something outside the script of the night. The image was quietly printed once in a small, local paper and then faded into obscurity, overshadowed by the official portraits splashed across national magazines. In the image, the contrast is striking. The glittering trophy, the humble act of kindness, the absence of any publicist hovering nearby. It offers a rare glimpse into the genuine character of a man whose on-screen roles often painted him as aloof or untouchable. Today, seeing that moment reminds us that some of the most memorable stories in Hollywood history aren't the ones crafted under studio lights, but those found in the quiet, human gestures that happen when the spotlight shifts away. In the spring of 1948, production wrapped on a romantic drama that would go on to become one of the decade's most beloved films. The cast and crew gathered for the customary farewell on the soundstage, a celebration filled with speeches, laughter, and champagne. Publicity photographers roamed the room, capturing polished group shots destined for studio press kits. But one frame, never intended for public release, tells a far more intimate story. In the dim corner of the set, the film's leading actor and actress, rumored for years to have shared more than just on-screen chemistry, stand close together, their foreheads touching in what appears to be a silent goodbye. No audience, no staged embrace, just two people caught in a moment that feels almost fragile. The photograph was taken by a young assistant camera operator using a small personal camera tucked into his jacket. He had been documenting candid moments for his own memories, never expecting the images to leave his possession. For decades, the print remained in an envelope, its edges curling with age, until it surfaced in an estate sale. At the time, such a photograph could have ignited rumors that studios worked tirelessly to control. But now, decades later, it reads differently. Less as a scandal, more as a testament to the human connections formed in the pressure cooker world of Hollywood filmmaking. In a business built on illusion, this rare photo peels back the curtain, offering a glimpse of sincerity that no scripted scene could match. It's a reminder that behind every iconic frame of old Hollywood lies another, quieter image, one that tells the truth. In 1937, a major studio was preparing for the release of a lavish musical, the kind designed to dazzle audiences with glittering costumes and elaborate dance numbers. The public saw the perfection, synchronized steps, beaming smiles, and flawless performances. But few ever glimpsed the raw work behind the spectacle. One rare photograph, taken long after the rest of the cast and crew had gone home, captures the film's leading actress rehearsing alone on stage. She's wearing a simple rehearsal dress, hair pulled back, barefoot on the polished floor. Her arms are mid-gesture, her face focused and unguarded, the grandeur of the set looming silently around her. The image was shot by the theater's night custodian, who often lingered after hours to watch rehearsals. On this night, moved by the solitude and dedication he saw, he borrowed a small camera from a friend and quietly took the photo. It was never meant for the press, and perhaps that's why it feels so authentic. In the era of old Hollywood, stars were rarely shown without the full armor of makeup, costume, and carefully arranged lighting. This photograph strips all of that away, revealing the quiet discipline behind the glamour. There is no orchestra, no chorus line, just a single performer perfecting her craft when no one is watching. When the photo resurfaced decades later, it offered a rare and humbling reminder that even the most celebrated performances are built on countless unseen hours of effort. It is in these hidden moments, away from the applause, that the true artistry of old Hollywood comes to life. In 1944, during the filming of a romantic comedy, the studio's publicity machine churned out carefully staged images of its stars, glamorous portraits, posed rehearsals, and perfectly timed smiles. But one photograph from that production stands apart, precisely because it wasn't meant for public eyes. The image shows the film's leading lady mid-spin in her dressing room, her evening gown fanning out around her like a burst of color. Across from her, the film's charismatic supporting actor is playing a tune on a small upright piano, head tilted back in laughter. The light is soft, coming from a single bulb above the mirror, catching the scattered makeup brushes and open costume trunk in the background. The moment was captured by the actress's personal assistant, who often kept a camera handy to record behind-the-scenes memories. This particular frame was taken after a long day of shooting, when the pair had decided, without rehearsal or reason, to share an impromptu dance before heading home. In the rigidly structured environment of old Hollywood, such private moments were rarely documented, let alone shared. Studios preferred their stars to be seen only in contexts that supported their screen personas, and a playful, off-script interaction like this didn't fit the marketing plan. When the photograph resurfaced decades later, it revealed something the polished studio portraits never could: the joy and spontaneity that existed beyond the controlled image-making of the time. It's a reminder that behind the carefully choreographed illusions of the silver screen, there were fleeting, unguarded bursts of humanity, moments where the stars simply lived in the present. In 1958, a major studio was deep into production on a high-stakes drama, one with a budget so large that every minute on set was carefully scheduled. By day, the soundstage buzzed with cameras, lights, and dozens of crew members. By night, it was locked and dark, its grand sets standing silent until the next morning. Yet one rare photograph captures an entirely different scene. The two leads seated together on the edge of a prop staircase, scripts in hand, under the glow of a single work light. Their costumes are half removed, jackets draped over chairs, hair slightly mussed from a full day's work. Between them sits a thermos of coffee and a shared plate of sandwiches, as they quietly run lines long after the official wrap time. The image was taken by a security guard making his rounds, who happened to recognize the unusual sight and asked if he could take a quick photo. They agreed on the condition it remain private. And it did, for more than 40 years, tucked inside a photo album in the guard's home. At the time, a candid like this would have undermined the studio's preferred narrative that stars simply appeared on set and delivered their lines flawlessly. In truth, such late-night sessions were acts of dedication, a behind-the-scenes reality rarely acknowledged. Today, the photo stands as a quiet testament to the work ethic and passion that fueled old Hollywood's most enduring performances. It reminds us that beyond the bright lights and elaborate sets, much of the magic happened in these unglamorous, unseen hours, when the only audience was a single bulb swaying gently overhead. In 1941, the world premiere of a much-anticipated historical epic drew the usual spectacle: flashing cameras, velvet ropes, and eager fans lining the street outside the grand movie palace. Inside, stars posed for official photographs, shook hands with studio executives, and made the carefully choreographed circuit of interviews. But one rare image from that night was taken not under the marquee lights, but in the shadowed street beyond the main entrance. It shows the film's leading man, coat collar turned up against the steady drizzle, embracing a young actress who had a small supporting role. Her gown is slightly damp at the hem, her clutch tucked under her arm as she smiles faintly. There is no audience here, no publicity agent guiding the interaction, just a personal goodbye before he steps into the waiting car. The photograph was captured by a press photographer who'd been sent to get wide shots of the crowd. Seeing the pair together, he instinctively framed the moment, perhaps realizing it was more than a casual exchange. He developed the image but chose not to submit it, fearing it might invite gossip that could harm their careers. Decades later, when the image finally emerged from a private archive, it revealed nothing scandalous, only two colleagues sharing a brief, genuine connection amid the orchestrated chaos of a Hollywood premiere. In the golden age of cinema, where every public moment was scripted, this rain-soaked frame feels almost revolutionary. It strips away the layers of performance and publicity, offering a glimpse into the unguarded humanity that often lived just beyond the reach of the spotlight.
In the summer of 1950, production was underway on a romantic drama set in the sweeping landscapes of the American West. Each day began with a flurry of activity: wardrobe fittings, makeup sessions, and technical checks.
all timed to the minute so the cameras could start rolling at first light. But one rare photograph from that set shows a side of the process that audiences never saw. Taken at dawn, it captures the film's two leads seated at a small folding table just outside the soundstage doors, sharing breakfast before the day's shooting began. The actress, still in her robe, has her hair pinned up loosely, while the actor wears a plain white shirt with suspenders hanging at his sides. Between them sits a simple spread of coffee, toast, and scrambled eggs on mismatched plates. The photograph was taken by the unit's still photographer, who was waiting for the official call time. Struck by the calm, almost domestic scene, he snapped a single frame. It was never part of the film's publicity package, such casual images rarely were, and instead remained in his personal collection for decades. At the time, studios preferred to present stars as untouchable figures, not as people who sipped coffee in the cool morning air, discussing lines and trading quiet jokes. Yet this photograph's enduring appeal lies in exactly that ordinariness. It's a moment that bridges the gap between the myth of old Hollywood and the reality of the people who lived it. Before the makeup, before the costumes, before the carefully lit close-ups, there was simply breakfast, a shared ritual that for a brief moment belonged to no one but them.
In 1939, during the height of a major studio's publicity campaign for a sweeping historical drama, its two leading stars were constantly photographed together on red carpets, in orchestrated lunch meetings, and even on staged casual outings arranged by publicists. These images fed fan magazines with the idealized version of Hollywood romance the studio wanted the public to see. But one rare photograph from that period tells a different story. Captured on the setback lot between takes, it shows the pair walking side by side down a quiet service road, far from the crowd of reporters stationed at the main gate. The actress has removed her elaborate wig and is carrying it under her arm, while the actor wears a light jacket over his costume to keep warm. Their heads tilt toward each other in mid-conversation, their expressions relaxed, unposed. The image was taken by a set carpenter testing out a newly purchased camera. He had no intention of selling the photo. It was simply a snapshot of two colleagues sharing a walk. For decades, it stayed in his family's possession, unknown to the public. What makes the photograph so compelling is its contrast to the polished images printed in the press. There's no artifice here, no marketing agenda, just a slice of real life in a place designed for make-believe. In an era when every public interaction between stars was carefully constructed to maintain a certain narrative, this backlot stroll is a reminder that the truest moments often happen in the spaces in between, away from the headlines, under the quiet sky of an ordinary afternoon.
In 1946, a grand period drama was being filmed on one of Hollywood's largest sound stages, with sets so elaborate they could have doubled as museum exhibits. The costumes were equally intricate, layers of silk, lace, and hand-stitched embroidery, all designed to impress audiences with their authenticity. One rare photograph from that production captures a moment just minutes before the cameras rolled on a pivotal scene. The lead actress stands off to the side of the set, her gown half-fastened, as the head costume designer kneels to adjust the hem. A makeup artist hovers nearby with a powder brush, ready to dash in for last touches. The actress's expression is calm, but her eyes are focused in quiet concentration, rehearsing her first line in her head. The image was taken by a lighting technician experimenting with a handheld camera. It wasn't part of the official still schedule. In fact, the studio typically discouraged such informal shots, preferring the public to see only flawless final images. For this reason, the photograph never left the technician's personal album until it was discovered decades later by his family. In the world of old Hollywood, the grandeur seen on screen often obscured the collaborative work and small acts of precision that made it possible. This candid moment reveals the unseen choreography behind the magic, the quick hands, the quiet adjustments, the shared focus just before the director called action. What could have been dismissed as a mundane part of the filmmaking process now feels intimate and rare. It's a reminder that even in a system built on spectacle, the most human and revealing moments often happen just out of frame.
Among the countless images taken during Hollywood's golden era, few have stories as unusual as this one. For decades, there were whispers of a particular photograph, a candid moment between two of the industry's most powerful figures, taken in the early 1950s and immediately locked away by studio executives. The picture, discovered only in recent years, shows the head of a major studio and one of its most celebrated actresses seated together at a small table during what appears to be a private lunch. Sunlight streams through the window, catching the edge of a smile on her face as he leans in to speak. There is no sign of the grandeur typically surrounding either of them. No gala setting, no red carpet backdrop. Just a quiet meal between two people whose professional relationship was often the subject of industry speculation. According to archivists, the photograph was taken by a young contract photographer assigned to shoot stills for a film press kit. Passing by the restaurant, he recognized the pair and captured a quick frame through the open window. By the next morning, word of the image had reached the studio's publicity department. Fearing how the press might interpret it, executives ordered the negative placed in a secure vault, along with other unusable material deemed off-message. It remained there for over half a century, forgotten as the studio changed ownership and archives were reorganized. Only when a historian was granted access to the vault for a documentary project did the photograph resurface. What makes this image remarkable is not scandal, but subtlety. It hints at a connection that was never publicly acknowledged, framed in a moment of genuine ease. In an industry where every gesture was scrutinized and repackaged for public consumption, this photograph feels almost revolutionary, an unvarnished fragment of truth that survived decades of deliberate erasure. Its rediscovery adds a new layer to the mythology of old Hollywood, reminding us that behind the official narratives lay countless private stories, preserved only by chance and the quiet persistence of those who recognize their value.
Old Hollywood has long been remembered as an age of elegance, artistry, and carefully crafted illusions. The films, the premieres, and the glittering images published in fan magazines told one story, a story of perfection. But the rare photographs we've explored here offer something far more compelling: authenticity. In these candid frames, the myths fade and the people emerge. We see quiet acts of kindness, moments of rebellion, unguarded laughter, and the dedication that fueled performances destined for the silver screen. These images, once hidden in personal albums, forgotten archives, or even locked studio vaults, now stand as small but powerful pieces of history. They remind us that behind every spotlight there is a shadow, and within that shadow live the real stories, the ones never meant for public view, yet rich with humanity. Which of these moments changed the way you see old Hollywood? Share your thoughts, your favorites, or your own memories of the golden age in the comments. The curtain has lifted. The truth, framed in time, is here for us to see.